This episode of the Totally Rad Show is brought to you by Jack Threads. Today on TRS, discovered in Jim Henson's archives comes an artful graphic novel called Tale of Sand.
We're doing a comic book segment today, but it's not really a comic book. It's sort of a realization through the comic book medium of a screenplay, a lost screenplay by Jim Henson and his writing partner, who's his name? Oh, it's terrible. Mike just put it above me. I should have known that. Anyway, and it is a realization of this lost screenplay that he did in the late 60s, early 70s. I think the last draft is dated just a couple of years before Sesame Street hit and the Muppet Show in 1976. So this is a very young, early, national notoriety Jim Henson and his writing partner writing a very non-kids idea. This is an adult concept, a surrealistic film about a guy who has an experience.
That's surrealistic.
It's very surrealistic. It's a guy in a sort of an Old West milieu who is given a map and told, you got 10 minutes head start, go. And then he goes. And some crazy stuff happens.
Well,
go ahead. What do you say?
Really say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Really? Should I say?
The artist.
Yeah.
Ramon Perez, right?
Yeah, he's amazing. He's been around forever, and his art is absolutely stunning. He's done lots of comic books, lots of other things as well. I'm sure people know who he is. He's phenomenal.
And the art in this book is amazing.
And of course, this was all taken. The script was taken many years, just recently. There's just discovered in an attic or something, and they're like, well, let's make it into something. And yeah.
I was going to describe it as, I think the best moments of this are like Buster Keaton meets Indiana Jones. But a probably more apt description of the entire story is like an occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge. You guys know the famous?
Yeah.
Where the guy, I don't want to, you know it. He's hanging and then also the noose breaks and he's going on this crazy surreal thing. I also felt like it's a visual movie. Your favorite movie?
Rango?
Dinner with Andre. It's a visual of My Dinner with Andre.
Wow, you blew my mind on that one.
Because
it's kind of Alice in Wonderland.
And Labyrinth. I mean, it does. You certainly see the etchings of the Through the Rabbit Hole story that Labyrinth is. Alice in Wonderland, of course, but Jim Henson did Labyrinth. I loved it. I experienced this. First of all, this. If you're a Jim Henson fan, you're stupid for not owning this. You probably already own this. If you don't, you must purchase this if you are a Jim Henson fan. It is just a wonderful, substantial piece of...
Yeah, it's art in itself.
It's art in itself, the book. It has a wonderful miniature biography of Jim Henson in the beginning that is its own, like you could buy it just for that.
And it's a very different side to him that I think than most people have seen.
Yeah. And so the book, I love the large format. Archaea also put out the Dapper Men, right? That was in a similar large format. Return of the Dapper Men. And this, every page I turned, instead of like going from panel to panel, I kind of experienced the whole thing as one thing and then like dissected each thing. But I for some reason, I was struck by how I was experiencing this story. I loved it. I don't normally love the Alice in Wonderland genre. I don't love that kind of storytelling where it's all surreal. But there was something just so pleasant and joyful about this. And there were some fun, like I said, it has that Buster Keaton silent film quality with a little Indiana Jones mixed in. Like it was, as Jim Henson's screenplay, as his story, it actually was kind of cool. I don't know that I would have loved the movie, but within this art, it was phenomenal. And I breezed through it.
There's very little dialogue.
Yeah.
It's a daunting book when you get it because you go, oh my God, this is going to take me 4 or 5 hours, and then you start reading it and you just kind of
5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes you're done, and you're like, oh, that was interesting.
But I think it's something you would return to.
I agree.
It's a rich experience.
Yeah, I didn't really love it. I mean, it was a fun little experience, but surreal is not my thing. It's just not my thing. So there's a lot, because I just don't feel like anything's actually happening. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not. Yeah, and that's the thing with me and surreal stuff. It's really hard for me to enjoy it because I know none of it really matters, and anything can happen. So I'm never worried about any peril that he may be in, because it's like, well, none of it's actually happening, and not only that, anything can happen that can save him. So I never, and that's with anything that's surreal for me. There's no stakes in it. So it then becomes this sort of like going to an art gallery where you're like looking at a painting that you don't understand what was actually happening, but you're like, but it's pretty. So this book, it was that to me. It was like, I don't really have any stake in this game, but what I'm seeing is very pretty and interesting and, thought-provoking at times. But inevitably, it just kind of ended, and I was like, oh, okay, that happened. But it didn't. I wasn't really blown away by it. I mean, I think Dan is 100% right. If you are a Jim Henson fan, this is a must-buy. The book itself is a piece of art, and literally was sitting on the table, and Heather was like, that's a gorgeous book on the table. And I was like, yeah, that's literally the comic we're reading. You know what I mean? And to say comic doesn't do it justice. And there's so much history of Jim Henson in the book that when you're reading it, it's almost like a trip back into childhood. I mean, seeing him as a young man, I never saw any of that stuff as him as a young man.
There's photos of him making test shots for this eventual movie that it's like, oh my God.
It's literally like the photos. It's literally like
any of us now.
But it's like when you see George Lucas making Star Wars, we all saw that. We never saw that with Jim Henson.
Yeah.
For me, Jim Henson was always that old guy with the big beard. You know what I mean? And so that was brought a lot of joy from this book. So it's a very, very fun read. I just didn't. It wasn't one of those things that like I would probably never pick it up again unless I wanted to sort of like thumb through the fun pictures, but it didn't quite sit with me. And I think it's because I'm just not really a surreal. That stuff doesn't really sit with me.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, and it's a tough thing to recommend to anybody because of that fact. I mean, it plays a lot like a game that you guys have probably all played at camp, or it's an improv game that I'm sure you've played, where it's sort of you start telling a story, and then somebody else says the next sentence, and somebody else says the next.
Exactly.
And then at a certain point, it becomes, and then a fire engine arrives.
Yeah, exactly.
Then, it just spirals completely out of control.
Yeah.
And that's what the experience of going through this is like. And then he's in the woods, and there are a bunch of guys shooting at him who are Mexican army, and then football players are there.
Yeah.
There's football players
there.
there.
There's a more valid metaphor, though.
I think that the metaphor is really loose.
Yeah.
I really do, and maybe it's just a one-time reading, and if I read it 3 or 4 times, I would get more from it.
Right.
But what I did get from it is sort of the standard surreal idea where you're just running away from yourself. You're just running away from your past. You're just running away from all the baggage that you carry. Yeah, that's to be expected. That's something that is not a revelation at the end. Is not something that is I really get a lot out of, because there aren't a lot of wonderful details that support the metaphor. At least, as I said in a first reading, maybe there are nuances that I would get 3 or 4 times. But like Marie Callender's, where you come for the food and stay for the pie, this is really, you come for Jim Henson, you stay for that art. The art is exquisite. Exquisite. It is, I can't even express how gorgeous and wonderful the layouts are, how it washes over you in these incredible set pieces. There's so much going on in every single panel. There are these incredibly large multi-character fight sequences, action moments, chase sequences that just sprawl across these large format double page spreads. It is stunning. And that alone, even if you don't like Jim Henson, is worth picking this up and taking a look at it.
Is that the pie?
That's the pie.
Okay, that's
in
the
this
pie.
metaphor.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of loose metaphors, and I really cherish the fact that I got a chance to sit down with this and experience it. It really is something unique and special.
And I'm definitely jealous that Dan gets to keep it at his house, because I literally, it would be something I would put out on a coffee table,
Yeah.
and when people come in, they would gravitate towards it. And everybody knows Jim Henson. I mean, it's like this slice of Jim Henson that nobody knew about, and everybody knows Jim Henson. So it's not like anybody who comes into your house and sees that goes, "What's that?" And you go, "Oh, it's a lost Jim Henson screenplay." They all go, "That's odd," and start, you know what I mean? Like,
But it's not, it's not for kids. I mean, the guy smokes and it's violent and there's sex and there's like.
No, it's not.
well, there's nudity.
Yeah. The word rape
Yeah.
is in the script.
I mean, there was that really good Sesame Street about rape.
Episode sponsored by-
R-A-P-E.
Yep. Is that
You're
Rocco
welcome.
ripe?
You're welcome for that soundbite, America.
Yeah, right.
Oh, God.
Anyway.
You can mash that up with an old soundbite of mine.
Yeah, right.
Anywho, it's something special. It's $30, but I think that's a steal for something that looks this
Would have been
pretty.
a great stocking stuff. Like, would have been a great Christmas gift if we
Dude,
had
Christmas
gotten to this
2012.
earlier.
Christmas
Yeah.
2012.
Yeah, exactly. So, Tale of
Love it.
Sand.
Birthdays.
There you go.
All right, everybody, be sure to stick around. We're going to be answering one of your Twitter questions right after this. But first, our sponsor, Jeff Cannata.
Dan, tell them about the suckers.
He's talking to you, Dan.
There's suckers out there. It's a
Yeah.
problem. It's an epidemic.
Epidemic.
It is an epidemic.
Yeah.
Tell them why we hate the suckers, Dan.
Why do you hate the suckers, Dan?
We hate the suckers because they buy clothes, at full. They don't wait for sales. They don't wait for.
They don't wait for sales.
They just go out and buy clothes when
they
they
get sucked.
see them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what do they pay, Dan?
Well, they go to the store.
Yep.
Sucker.
They get out, they drive in their car, they go to the store, they
Yeah.
shop around, they see an item.
all know how suckers
and
work.
they look at the price and they go, yeah, I'll pay that price.
What price is that? Full price? Is that full price, Dan?
On that label, on that price, that's what they pay. Nothing
price.
less than that.
Suckers.
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 I don't want to see any of you turn into a sucker. Thank you, Dan. Here's a way you can avoid it. Here's the way you can avoid it. Jack Threads. JT, JC, teaming up. It's the way to be. Don't pay full price. You can get up to 80% off sweet, sweet brands. Cool brands. Brands that when you walk down the street, people will be like,
People be
Whoa.
like, what?
Well, he clearly paid full
Whoa.
price for that.
there's the only way he could have gotten those clothes is to pay full price, and yet I can sense
He's not a sucker. Yeah.
JackThreads.com is the place to go. It is a members-only shopping club. See, they can't allow everybody to just get all these sweet deals. They need to close the doors, put the velvet rope up, seal the entrance. But you can get behind that entrance, over that velvet rope, and through those doors by going to our little hookup site, JackThreads.com/TRS, because we got your back. We don't want you to become a sucker. We don't want to have to look at you sideways and go,
Sucker.
no, that's kind of what we do. Sucker. JackThreads.com/TRS. Then you can go shopping and get sweet brands, save money, and don't ever have to leave your couch.
Perfect. Sucker
Boom,
free.
shakalaka.
Check us out tomorrow for a new game. It's called the What's It About Bout.
Today's Twitter question comes from @Beernesk,
Ooh.
if that truly is your Beernesk. If 2012 truly is the end of the world, what item on your bucket list do you have to check off? Guys?
Well, the sincere answer is making a movie. Not really a fun answer.
Really? You want to do that before the end of the world? Really? That's the thing? You're like,
Like
I
I
made a
said-
movie. I hope people get this up.
It's the thing I
Want to
Most.
do.
it's stuck in me
Personal.
and I haven't done, and it's like I would feel incomplete.
Interesting.
good.
But I
Mine
didn't
is
go with the
mine's
for
going into
pleasure.
space.
Oh,
wow.
well, you
Well,
may,
maybe that'll
you
happen
may be
in
in
this
there
game.
after 2012.
Just will all be space.
Yeah.
Well, but that's not as much fun as being conscious of it. So, $50 million in a cosmonaut outfit, and I'm up there.
Yeah. I don't
That's
know.
all you need.
It is.
I would want to see more of the world before it is no longer the world.
You can see. I'm going to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
One go. I just look out the window and I go, bam,
I
saw it.
appreciated a little.
What is that?
more
China?
up close.
Bam, saw it.
Thanks for
like
sending
Google
your
Earth.
question, Beernesk.
Yep.
What were you gonna say?
Have a child as well.
Really? That's
Really?
a terrible idea. Have a child just to have it disintegrate into the end of the world.
Very selfish.
You're like, oh, this is what it feels like to have a child.
Amazing.
Oh, well.
Oh, that's fun. Bang.
One
That's
second.
one more death
What?
on your head, Dan.
Damn it.
Oh, Lord.
My hands are filled with blood.